100% right, every time. The McClaskey Excellence Institute brings you The Operations Experts, a podcast with hosts David McClaskey and Billy Schaefer. Delight your customers, reduce errors, and increase repeat business. Take your operations from ordinary to extraordinary. Welcome to the Operations Experts Podcast, where we talk to leaders who create world-class operations for their organizations. And today we have the privilege of talking to, I'm just going to call him a Johnson City, Tennessee icon, because his name is so closely associated with the city, the co-founder and owner of Johnson City Brewing Company, Eric Latham. And it's such a pleasure to hear about a business that's as much about the community as it is about brewing beer. So, hey, welcome.
Yeah, welcome to the show, Eric.
Thank you all so much. It's great to be here.
Hey, can you just tell us about Johnson City Brewing Company? Who are you? Who do you serve? What are your growth plans? And, kind of tell us where you came from as well.
Yeah, real simple story there, small business. And I was a home brewer, actually started home brewing about 18 years ago. And then, about 11 or so years ago, Kat and I came up with the idea of starting a brewery here in Johnson City. Micro brewing was booming. And we decided to for better or for worse, we decided to turn a hobby into a small business. And we did it together. Kat and I are the founders. And here we are 11 years later. We've grown slowly, incrementally, and organically, but wouldn't be here without the community. And we're pretty excited.
It's incredible. It's always wonderful to hear when people tell this story, and it's never really just about the passion. Like, there's so much backstory to everything. It's not just about beer. You're heavily driven in the community, and that couldn't be any more amazing, because when you build the community, great things happen. Oh, love to hear that. One thing that we like to focus on when we talk to people is strategic planning. If you don't have a plan, or my favorite phrase, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yeah.
So what's one thing that you're most excited for with your strategic plan this year?
Yeah, well, you got us at a good time. That's a really good question, because in the beginning when we opened, we were renting, we were funded by friends and family. So when we opened up, famously, we like to say when we opened up, we literally had no money in the bank account. So anything that we made in, yeah, it was crazy. So anything that we made in was kind of going right back in to buy some more brewing materials and try to keep the whole thing going. Plus we were renting, right? Because we didn't have the means to buy any kind of property or facility. And immediately it became clear, and as the years went on, that we wanted to be a business that owned our own property. Just because we invest so much, time, sweat, and tears into things. And we've been able to do that strategically. Now with this, the property that I'm at right now is the Walnut Street location. And this is the second property that we were able to now purchase. We have a very healthy and nice sizable mortgage on both of these properties, but we were able to purchase it and to now reinvest back into our company. So, strategically, that was a big thing for us. And then this past year kicked off our next 10 years business plan. And that includes a number of things that we're trying to achieve to both increase stability and take care of our people.
Oh, man, that sounds terrific. And the whole idea of intentional growth. And what I heard you say is you and Kat paid yourself last. It's like we invested in the business and anything left over. And eventually, if we're really good, we actually get to take something out of the business. And
That's
that is such a mark of a person who cares about their business. You're saying, look, I'm growing something here. It's like investing in your kids, investing in your business. I mean, that is so great to hear. And it's such a wonderful mark of leadership. And I know during this time periods, particularly the early time periods, and particularly because I don't have this wad of cash that I can use to cover up mistakes and stuff. What were some of the operations related challenges? Can you tell us about one an operations related challenge and how you overcame it?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you guys, because I was really excited to meet with you guys and talk with you. But can I ask a question right back to qualify that?
Oh, absolutely you can.
What can you tell me when you say operations? This just may be me lacking understanding. I don't have an MBA. I was schooled in journalism, was my degree, and now I make alcohol for a living. So when you say operations, can you guys sprinkle in a little bit about all the things that are encompassed under operations?
Yeah, let me give you everything you do. You have requirements for your business. It's service requirements. I've heard you, we want our businesses so everybody's welcome, the entire family. It's not just for one age group. So you have requirements for Johnson City Brewing Company. And the way you serve those requirements is through your services and your products and the ambiance you set up in your business. So everything you do to do those things, that's what we mean by operations. So it's
Okay.
the idea that you walk into one of your 3 businesses and you look around and you say, "That's exactly the way Kat and I would like this to be
Mm.
operating," because I see the service is exactly according to our standard. You taste the beer and you go, "Oh, that's exactly how this beer," and of course, the variety of beers we have, exactly the friendliness, and then you look around the restaurant and you see it's completely clean and people are enjoying themselves and you've created that ambiance because they hit your requirements. So it's all the things you did that caused that outcome, not just one of the times, but every time. And what we like to say at McCloskey Excellence Institute is you bet $1,000 of your own money that the next customer that walks into your business will get 100% of your business's requirements because that's how good you are in operations. Now, did that help? Billy, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, David, you said that on a really great. That was a very high level. That was the PhD
Mhm.
level. If Eric, if I was to break it down, um, what challenges did you have making more beer?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good question, and I appreciate you guys both giving the input here. I just remembered that I did miss one thing when you were David, when you were talking about the beer. I forgot to bring you guys some beers for the meeting here.
Yes.
Uh, but
It would get more interesting as it went on, wouldn't it?
That's very true. Well, when I think about your questions and your comments there are two things that pop in our mind is that for our operations and our business, two very important things to us are our people, our staff, and then our equipment. And so,
Mhm.
two big challenges that we've had over the years have been both retaining people, training people the right way, and educating them, not just on their jobs, but our
Mhm.
products and our services that we
Right.
offer. And then the second thing is the equipment side of thing is that, 18 years ago, I started home brewing 5 gallons at a time, was just producing about 40 beers at a time.
Mhm.
The equipment that you see behind me right now, the equipment that we received just this week, will start producing about 465 gallons at a shot, or about 3,500 beers at a time. And so, as you guys can imagine, and with your experience and background, the scaling up on the equipment has been a challenge. But those two things, the retaining people, educating them, making a solid team, challenging them, giving them creative outlets, and then on the equipment side, figuring out how to scale from 5 gallons at a time to 465 gallons. Those have probably been our biggest two challenges over the years.
That's an incredible percentage increase when it comes to going from 5 to 460 gallons. That's a whole lot of beer to grow. Especially you talked about people and the products and services you're doing. It's all about system based, and it sounds like it's getting those systems in place to grow. And that's what we find most people struggle with is they don't have the solid system in place, but they grow. And it's like it's almost like you have that vine that you want to grow and you want to create some piece of art. Well, if you just let it grow, it's going to go where it wants unless you're training it to go a certain way by having that system in place. You got to have the systems before you grow fast. And that's a real tough thing that a lot of people have to deal with right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the whole idea of learning from experience, it's one of the cornerstones, and when you grow like that, you wow, the reason I can do the more advanced thing is because I learned from doing the more simpler things,
Yep.
and now it's like walking up the stairs, well, you can't just jump up 4 floors, but nobody has trouble I'm not gonna say nobody, it's very possible to walk up a set of stairs for 4 stories if you learn what you're doing. So I think it's so great that what you've said is that, wow, we're really designing a business and we're intentionally designing it and we're learning as we go and we're growing and we're making sure we're successful as we go.
Yep.
And you talked about wanting to learn and opportunities to advance your people. Well, I want to mention something that's good for Johnson City Brewing Company, but also good for all of our listeners. And that's the upcoming Tri-City Quality Forum. This is the 66th year in a row that we have put on the Quality Forum. It's a community service. It is the longest running regional quality conference in the world. 66 years in a row. That gets increasingly older than most of our listeners at the Tri-City Quality Conference. And so wanted to tell you about that. It's coming up November 13th. It's virtual. Look at these attributes. A, it's virtual. B, it's free. And all you have to do is tune in. And then you have national class speakers that are going to talk about something that you can take away from each one. And we got 4 speakers lined up for November 13th. And all you have to do to register is you just go online and type in Tri-City Quality Forum or TC Quality Forum. I think if you just type in Tri-City Quality Forum, you'll come to our website. Register. It takes about 2 or 3 minutes to register, and you got it. And so what are you going to hear? We're going to hear about a wonderful founder and president, Chuck Galt of Max Coding, and he's going to talk about how people use their key customer requirements to focus everything they do in their business and how he's used it to improve his business. And so a wonderful, he's an alumni of our Achieving World Class Results class and just a superb implementer and somebody who helps people out all the time. Levi McPherson, AI is the big topic. And it's so wonderful to be able to talk to somebody who's got profound knowledge in AI. He's been working with AI right since the beginning, and it's like not only is it his business, it's also his hobby. And so he's going to talk about how do you use AI to improve your operations, which is not something a lot of people talk about. And then we have this wonderful story by David Jones, who's the president of the Excellence Advisory. And he's going to talk about some really great leadership lessons, some really profound things, but he's going to do it talking about an experience he had uh, trying to get to his daughter's wedding so he can walk her down the aisle in the middle of a hurricane. And it is one of the most exciting and I have to tell you, almost tear-jerking stories because it's real too. I mean, it is David Jones at his essence, and the lessons you take away are fantastic. And Ashley Childress. Now, this is one that's not going to be for all listeners, but it's for a certain set of listeners where you can't get it anywhere. Bayesian optimization with design of experiments. I'm sure that's the one everybody would say, yeah, I want to do it first. But I can tell you, if you're a statistician and you're working with design experiments, you're just not going to hear this very much. And it's such a great practical talk. And those are the 4, and we'll hope you join us.
Wonderful. Well, Dave, thank you for that. Let's get back to the star at hand today. Eric,
Yes.
the
Let's get back to Johnson City Brewing Company.
one of my favorite thing to do with any of my businesses or what I'm working with people on is I always have those aha moments of like, if I would have just known this 10 years ago, my world would have just been on a different trajectory. What's that thing
Mm.
you've learned now and over the past couple of years where you're like, if I would have known that in the beginning, oh, why didn't I know that in the beginning? What's that bit of information you could share with everybody as they're growing?
Well, yeah, there's probably a couple things. There's been a lot of breweries, or I should say, home brewers, over the past couple of decades that said, "Oh my goodness, I love making beer. I want to do this for a living." And a lot of them come to us and say the same thing and say, "How'd you guys do it?" And I say, "Well, the first thing is there's a difference between brewing and the business of brewing. Just setting up all the things and permitting and regulatory and taxes and
Right.
personnel and all that kind of
Oh,
thing."
goodness.
So when we first opened, I hadn't quite realized that yet, and so all of the things you have to do to run a business first. This is a business first. It just happens to be that our product is beer, and root beer and various services now and things that we've evolved into. So that was a big realization for me, at least early on. And then the second thing I would mention is that a couple of years ago, now that we've got 4 locations, we actually decided to make the move rather than me managing not only the locations but all the people at those locations. Was that I set managers in place of each of the locations, picked some key people within our company that had a lot of potential, some
Hmm.
management qualities, could train them up on what I was doing at those facilities, and then they manage those facilities and the personnel there. And they've done a fantastic job, and it's allowed me, rather than to working in the business all the time, to work on the business. and to strategize and to build our plan. And so those were a couple of the big realizations over the years that were kind of aha moments for me and have really helped us move forward.
Yeah, and this whole idea of transitioning from a hobby to a business, and, I think, you've so successfully have made that transition, and it's like you have to have 2 or 3 different skill sets to do that. And of course, the passion, and I could see how excited you were when you talked about, "Oh, and we get to deal with government regulations and taxes and things like that." I could just see, wow, I can't wait to hear more about that. So I mean, that's a great way to proceed forward on sustainable growth. In this challenge and in this path, you've probably have made some investments that looked very promising. I mean, every business has. And then in retrospect, you said, "Well, what I learned is never do that again,
Yeah.
or never do that way again." Could you share one or two of those kind of things so our listeners could learn? And what would there have been anything that would have tipped you off to know that you shouldn't have done this investment? In hindsight.
Oh my goodness, how long do we have here?
Okay, just share 1 or 10. Yes, 1 or 2 will
Yeah.
do.
Well, I
Yeah,
can
we
tell
all
you
we all have
that
we all have them, don't we?
yeah, yeah, and Kat and I will talk about this all the time and, Billy, you pointed out earlier is that, operations is a big term, I think, but at the end of the day, we boil it down to how do we make beer and how do we do it better? How do we take care of our people? How do we scale up and all of those things? But as a
Mhm.
small business, I mean, there's probably 100 things that we could talk about over the years where we've said, "Oh my goodness, we'll never do it that way again." But I can tell you that a lot of the small business has boiled down to for us is that if you're not willing to do pretty much anything and everything you can, the passion of it will get you so far, but anything and everything you can to keep this thing going, which is to say that, the beginning, Kat and I, it was she and I making it and serving it. She and I are the
Yeah.
founders, and now that we're up to so many employees and facilities, even some of our new employees just to think that we're the owners. And sometimes we have to have all hands meetings to, retell that story and to let them know, the story of our company, the culture of our
See?
company, what we do
I
and why. But it's all the way from, on Saturday night when a restaurant down the street says, "Quick!" It's 10:30 at night and they need a couple of kegs of beer. If you're not willing to do that,
Mhm.
you might not last as a business.
Mhm.
All the way to having some really hard conversations, both with our shareholders and with our staff, and even with customers.
Mhm.
Those hard conversations are never fun to have, but you gotta have those, and they happen from time to time, and that's
Yeah.
just the reality of owning and running a business.
Mhm.
And so, those, we're still making mistakes and learning from what we do even today, even, now working on 12 years in business,
Mhm.
both on running a business from all the paying taxes and regulatory and how to properly do it right and run a business to even scaling up. Like I said, this equipment getting here now, we got that equipment. The real work begins on how to set it up properly and get it registered and to work with all levels of government. And so I'm sure there's going to be some mistakes along the way, but we have learned a lot along the way. And we're lucky to have the shareholders we do, the staff that we do, the best staff around, and just excited about the next 10 years and how we can do it. And I wanted to ask you all a question here from folks that have run operations and have done this for a long time. Sometimes we get into a microcosm when we're working on our business here. Knowing what I've talked about and what you guys know about our business, do you see any kind of things that we could do better to grow our business or to do it any better?
Well, I think you're doing a lot of great things. The first thing, you're learning from your mistakes, which a lot of people don't do. The one thing that I would tell you that where you're at, and so you have owners, you have operators, and then you have owner operators, which is where you live, is you're operating the business. Sometimes as an owner operator, we forget to step back and actually survey it because we're so busy doing the things that need to be done that we forget to step back and look at the 30,000-foot view as opposed to that we're in the 5,000-foot view, we're getting stuff done. And when you really step back, you can see a whole lot more because now you can see the process and the flow of how everything actually works, as opposed to just seeing the one minute piece that it is. I go back to I was a musician for a long time, and when you learn a piece of music, you play the whole piece of music, and then you break it down into the small parts to practice, and then you play the whole piece again. So you go from large to small to large. And if you apply that to your business of, I'm going to look at 30,000 feet, I'm going to get in the weeds, and then I'm going to come back out to 30,000 feet, you can see a whole lot more than if you just get lost in the day to day small parts of what's happening. That would be
Mm.
my biggest thing to look at.
Okay.
And Eric, you're asking such great questions. So thank you. And one of the things when you ask that question, you reminded the time I got to consult with Robert Mondavi. So went out to Napa
Mm.
Valley, and it picks up on the second point you mentioned. Robert Mondavi at that time was in Europe.
Hmm.
And so here was his basically his key leaders. We were teaching about operations excellence and but their passion for winemaking was just the reason they're there is they're just passionate about winemaking and are passionate about the business. And so Robert Mondavi was able to create a people who were as passionate about making wine as he was, and he's pretty passionate about making wine. So I think the idea that you and Kat are passionate about beer,
Mhm.
but you're also passionate, and we haven't talked enough about it. And I hope we will a little bit more about making a community, so that your stores are things that are places where people actually like to come, and so the idea of getting it so that when you're talking to particularly your operator, your managers of your business, but really every team member that works for you, it's like you're talking to yourself and you're talking to Cat because they've got that passion for the business and they're wanting to follow the rules, so we're doing it your way, not their way, because it's your business, not theirs. But let me ask you, you've probably created that passion with some of your managers and maybe all of them, but some or all of them. How have you done it, and can you systematically make it so you're saying, look, they're acting, it's this kind of statement of they're acting like the owner. Well, that sounds very lame, but it's really part of the key is, yeah. And the way I like to say it is that when I watch them work, they're doing exactly what, if Kat and I had that job, that's exactly how we'd be doing it because they are so aligned with our business. So, how do you get people lined up so that they have the passion that you and Kat have?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I don't know that we have that solved,
Mhm.
but we ask that question pretty regularly. And I can tell you from our experience there, we evolve the thought of what we do for a business from just okay, we're making beer or we're making root beer or whatever that is. We've got a product that we're
Mhm,
making, which we need to do that to pay the bills. But
mhm,
really, what we do is bigger than beer.
mhm.
Uh, and we focus on things like community and creativity. Those are two of our big points there. And
Okay.
so, for the community side of things, and we talk to all of our managers, our team members about community and creativity. That's kind of the two bases for our company here. On the community side is it's kind of a funny joke because Kat and I, we didn't start the brewery because we thought we made the best beer in the world. We like to make better and better products and focus on the quality of things. But we started the company because we like the idea of getting people together and having a place that is welcoming to all kinds of people.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And, it really harkens back, if you like history at all, harkens back all the way to the Egyptians and the Sumerians, a couple of
Okay.
yeah, it goes back a couple of millennia ago, and these guys, were, fermenting and they were making these kind of porridge beers, but essentially they found out it was kind of a funny joke. They said, "Hey, they made this kind of sugary soup and they put it out to cool overnight, and this wild yeast jumped in there and it started fermenting. And the next morning they woke up and this thing is, it's bubbling along here. And they said, 'Here, taste this thing.'" And they said, "Ooh, that tastes pretty good." And it was early on fermentation, and that's some of where it all began. But more importantly, what that did was over a couple of a millennia now, we have been getting together to have a beverage. You know, we humans have been getting together to have a beverage to either tell a funny story,
Yeah.
or even to talk about serious issues, political, cultural issues, and even some would argue even forming nations over having a beverage.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
so that was very interesting to us, and so that kind of culture, trying to translate that to our team and say, it's not just about the beer, it's about making a place, and they're part of that, and they're
Mhm.
part of that community, and, that's really where the foundation of our company.
Well, so I have a question for you. You talk a lot about this community and how and it's amazing how you're bringing everybody together. In your beer production, how do you get to that quality of beer and just that wants to get people from first time to regulars? How do you get them to cross that line of I'm going to try out Johnson City to I'm going to Johnson City?
Yeah, there was that's a really good question. There's a guy who started a brewery in California. It's a brewery called Firestone Walker. And I remember meeting him at a meeting, and he said, well, you know, in the beer world, and I'm guessing this probably applies to a lot of types of businesses, but, you know, it was quality, consistency, and availability. And so in
Mhm.
our production side of things, we're always looking at that. And early on, just to be honest with you, you know, when we first opened up and it was me and Kat, the only ones making it and serving it and working it, you know, in 24 hours a day. And at that
Mhm.
point, our two daughters were what, 1.5 and just born. So we were trying to run a small business on our own. And also trying to raise our girls. Some of the early on products were not that good. It was a very humbling experience. And so we released some products and they weren't that good. And sometimes when people come in, they say, ah, it's a nice beer that you made. And I said, trust me, we've made a lot of bad beers over the years. But slowly put in processes, OPs, and kind of quality control, and say, how do we use the best ingredients we can for the quality, doing it at the same time every time, and recording it for consistency purposes, and then availability, and that kind of ties into the scaling up of things. Is that
Mhm.
we really run three businesses. We've got a manufacturing business. We've got a
Mhm.
wholesaling business to the restaurants and tap rooms, and then we have our retail business that goes through our tap rooms. And so trying to make sure that those products are available and
Mhm.
on a consistent basis.
That's incredible. I mean, that's really getting it down to the customer level. That's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I loved you talked about in the beginning, you wanted to get those products and services right, but they weren't. And one thing that we have within our organization is our Achieving World Class Results course, and it's for everybody that in that beginning, when they know they should be getting things 100% right, but they still see mistakes, unhappy customers, fewer repeat buyers. But here at McClaskey Excellence, we actually believe that the best customers come back when you are just consistently delivering those ideas. So we have this course, the Achieving World Class Results course. It's designed for leaders just like you and everybody listening that can increase repeat business, eliminate errors, save money just by getting it right every time. It's
Mhm.
built around the four key pillars that your team is aligned, processes are in place, the people are engaged in following them. And by doing that, the customers will come back. It's actually what world or class organizations do. And our next public class starts November 6th. It's virtual, so you can bring your whole team from anywhere in the world. And all you have to do is go to mcclaskeyexcellence.com/AWCR and just don't let errors and rework drag you down any longer. Come to this class and you will see what it means to get things done right every single time. And we'll see you there.
Mhm. We've been talking a lot about the past, and Billy, I think this is the first time we've heard the Sumerians mentioned in this podcast.
Very
So
good.
I mean, that's there we go. It's we'll just wait for somebody to mention about Neanderthals or something, but at least the Sumerians, I'm going, wow, the greatest sailors of ancient times.
Mhm.
Uh, and so now we know what blew their sails. Yes. So,
Yeah.
and so we've been talking about the past. And Eric, I appreciate you sharing some of the history. I had no idea how beer started. That's kind of an accident. So very interesting. But let's go to the current time. What's one of your biggest problems you're facing with the size you're at? And you mentioned you've got a 10-year strategic plan. Can you share anything about your growth plans and then say, here's sort of where we're going, and here's sort of the biggest opportunity that we see we need to overcome to get there.
Yeah, so as part of our plan here, we kicked it off pretty good. This next 10-year plan, the first item on there was to purchase a property that was on Walnut Street here in Johnson City.
Right? Oh, great.
Because as you all know, Johnson City spent the last, what, 5 years and about
It
$35
it
million.
it se it seems like at least 5 years, yes.
Yeah, yeah, it seems like it, yeah, and we live just a few blocks from here, on the tree streets, of course, so we were right in the middle of all that construction over those years, and, we saw that as kind of a good location and a good investment for us to take that next step and buy our second property.
Mhm.
But, the underlying part of our business is to continue to own property, invest in those properties, and then, as we go, look at, what that means for us, for growth and that kind of thing. But the second part is to be able to scale up, so doubling our production capacity here, and just this is very timely because receiving this new equipment here, and what's
Mhm,
driving that is that even though the craft beer bubble may have popped across America, is that we made a decision that rather than signing up with distributors to do it ourselves and to slowly and organically grow our wholesale business from Johnson
mhm,
City all the way to Nashville. And so
mhm.
the first step was, increase our production capacity. And now we'll need to, the challenge that we're facing is a logistics challenge of, we're already taking our beer all the way to Nashville and all the cities along I-40 here. But the challenge is they order more and more product. What kind of system do we put in place as we continue to choose to do it ourselves,
Mhm.
to be able to deliver quality beer across the state of Tennessee, and then more beer, and then how to continue to get repeat customers there.
Nice.
So that's kind of in the 10 years, that's the shorter term side of it. And then ultimately, my dream, my vision for our company is to buy about 30 or 40 acres somewhere here in East Tennessee, and then kind of produce a kind of an Epcot or Dollywood of beer,
Mhm.
to put together, to build a facility and a place that would address hospitality in general. So
Yeah.
obviously, we continue to produce alcohol and non-alcohol based products, but offer food options, lodging options. And this project that we have laid out would be called Wild Frontier.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and then at the center of all of this would be a history of beer, in that we'd go all the way back to those Sumerians and those Egyptians, follow the history of fermentation, 6 or 7 places on the tour, that would be geographically related, the types
Mhm,
of beverages that they were producing during those times, and serve that and even food that they were making on at those times to pair it up with the beverages. And so you'd come to this property to take the tour, kind of the world history of beer,
mhm.
and we'd have a place to stay if you wanted to stay at the hotel
Wow.
there and enjoy yourself. So that's probably 7 or 10 or so years out, but that's ultimately where I want to go with all this.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
that's great. So
incredible.
it's sort of like the Busch Gardens of, beer.
You got it.
So that sounds and it's so great that it's consistent with your original thought. It's all about building a community.
Yes.
Beer is facilitating the building of the community, not necessarily the object. It's a means to an end as opposed to the end, it sounds like. So that's terrific.
Yes.
Well,
Thank you.
Eric, you've had a couple great questions for us so far. Part of at this point in the show, we always like to ask, hey, what's one question? I know you have a lot there, but is there any other questions you'd like to ask us that we can help you with as from the operations expert side?
Yeah, thanks for asking that and giving me the opportunity to do that because I used to be a journalist, so I love to ask questions too.
Oh,
And
great.
someone once told me, said, "You got 2 ears and one mouth, so you should listen twice as much as you speak." As much as I like to talk, I try to exercise that from time to time. But the one question I have for you all is that we're in this kind of interesting spot here because the world of business seems to focus a lot on startup businesses and then mature businesses and their
Mhm.
successes. And
Yeah,
here we are, we just celebrating 11 years and working on 12 years, and
right.
we're a little bit in this kind of purgatory of business. We are up to 16 employees, probably going to add several more going into the new year, especially as we try to address these challenges. So, my question to you all is a company that's at our level with time and experience and kind of coming along here, kind of middle between the startups and the ones that have been around for a while. What are some of the biggest challenges that you see companies that are kind of middle of the road that we are here, and then what are some of the solutions that they come up with in addressing these challenges?
Mhm. Oh, that's a fantastic question. And it's as you asked the question, you brought to mind one of my mentors was a leader named Sherman Hubbard, and one of his favorite phrases is that don't tell me what you're going to do, tell me what you're going to do with what you got.
Mhm.
Mm,
Because the problem is you got to solve it with we're starting with the hand you're dealt with. And so going to the whole thing, it's first of all, operations excellence applies to any size business because you always got to start with where you are. It's interesting because I've been consulting with companies for 55 years. If you talk to leaders, sometimes the conversation easily drifts this way. It's so much easier for those guys. They're smaller, they're bigger, they're this, they're that, than me because I have these challenges and these are the ones that are really the insurmountable stuff. As opposed to the kind of the truth is that it's equally difficult for every business. Starting from the entrepreneurs, you've got the problem of I love the way you said it. We got to have quality and availability, in our business, that's what we need to have the beer. It needs to be made right. It needs to be available, and we
mhm,
need to get it where it needs to go. And that's like 100%, 110% of all the resources you and Kat had to get that to happen. But now you just said something very significant. You now got 16 employees. That's a wonderful significance to our community. And now it's notice the problems are how do I hire employees? How do I motivate them? How do I get them to have the same passion the business we have? So I think the idea is that what is the current challenge you have? And here's you always have to start with where you're at. And then this is how I'm going to solve it. And one of the ways we find is there's almost no new business problems in reality. So once you've identified that problem that you currently have and that you've got to solve with the resources you currently have, who's already solved that problem from a similar situation? And a lot of times, if you seek those out, not only would they love to talk to you because you're just such a wonderful person to talk with.
huh,
Um, you can see those journalism skills, but probably it's always naturally Eric as well. Um, and ask, "Oh, how did you solve this?" And so that applies to every stage of the business.
Mhm.
And even though some of them may be more to get more publicity, but it's solving the problem you have at hand with
Mhm.
the resources you have at hand. And operations excellence applies to every phase there is. Billy, what would you add?
It's the same across the board, and that's what I think a lot of people need to understand is it doesn't matter how big you are or how small you are. I break it down into three things is as you're trying to grow, as you're trying to be more community focused, and let me say it this way, too often businesses think, "Oh, I just need to have my financial capital in place." But they also forget about people capital and
mhm,
process capital. Is do you have the process equity in place to operate at a high level? Do you have the people capital to be operate at the high level? And so often as people are growing or how they're trying to get impacting the community, they only focus on the financial capital. And if they're growing, they forget the people and the processes. Where small businesses, medium businesses, large businesses, the ones that do it great have that balance of financial capital, human capital, and process capital when it really gets into this.
mm.
It's such a balance across all those boards that it's the same for small, it's the same for medium, it's the same for gigantic. If you don't have all three of those things in place, it gets real tough real quick.
Hmm.
And what's the biggest opportunity you're facing that you might like to ask us about more specifically? Said, Here's a problem I'm solving. Do you all have anything you can do to help?"
Yeah, I think it's a question of so the craft beer industry before COVID was really booming, and it was a time of bigger is better, and the more you can
Mhm.
produce is better. And then what happened through COVID is that shifted. because a lot of the regional breweries and bigger ones started bringing their beer back closer to home. So ones
Mhm.
that were greatly distributed started contracting, and we haven't exactly rebounded. Our national association says that the one business model that is working in the craft beer world right now is a brew pub, which is basically selling most of what you make through your own tap room.
Right.
But we are seeing something that, and maybe it's just because we're really small, is we're
Mhm.
seeing huge opportunity to be able to grow our brand and take our products west of here,
Mhm.
all the way across Tennessee. But we don't have a system. Our system is built on focusing on our three retail places, our three tap rooms, which is
Mhm.
nice because that's more margins, and we'd like to do that. But there's opportunity that's missed, mainly not because we don't have good enough product. Our
Mhm.
team is doing a
Yeah.
really nice job at that, but
Right.
we weren't really built for the logistics of taking our product further and further away.
Mhm.
So there's business to be done there. We just haven't done that, so we don't have the experience, and I don't know exactly how to build that.
I can really help you with sometimes you don't have to figure it out. I know that sounds like a strange bit of advice. Somebody has already done this. Reach out to those people and benchmark those people. You're not the first brewery that has expanded past their market. And Tennessee has a lot of great people. It's reach out to them. And then it doesn't even have to be brewers. What other cold storage type items that you have to keep things cool have delivered and grown past? And who is logistical geniuses? Could you look at what UPS is doing with their logistics and learn something from them? It's look beyond just your own industry, but what it
Oh,
comes to is find somebody else who has already done it and copy it.
Mhm.
I'm a firm believer in that. And I'll go back to the music world of, yeah, Mozart was a genius, but he copied people. And
yeah,
then Bach was a genius, but he copied Mozart. And then everybody has copied somebody else and then improved upon it. What that famous line is, I can only see further because I stood on the shoulders of giants who stood
yeah,
before me. Why do you feel like you need to stand on the ground, the giants around you, and
Mhm.
be like, you've already done this. I'm going to learn what you did, and I'm going to now stand on top of your shoulders, and I'm going to see even further. No, that's very
yeah.
philosophical, but if you're talking about Sumerians, I'm going to get back to Mozart. So we're going to balance this a little bit. But hopefully that can help you understand is you don't have to start from scratch. Somebody else has already done a lot of legwork. What
Yeah,
can you learn from them?
appreciate that.
And that Eric, you've asked such great questions, and this has been such a great conversation. I'm hoping that soon I'll be in one of your 3 locations. I didn't realize one of them was near your home.
Yeah,
Living in the Tree Streets is a wonderful place to live. And hopefully we'll meet in over a beer to continue the conversation. So that'll be fantastic. And so thank you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and thank you for sharing. Here's how I've grown a business and I've grown it consistent with what we established the business. So it gets bigger. It's staying true to its course of it's about community and beer. And thank you for sharing what you're doing that and helping our listeners be better.
well, same to you guys. As thanks for having me here today. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and also what you do for businesses.
Pleasure. And as always, to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. New episodes drop first and third Monday of every month. And just remember, make sure you register for the Tri-City Quality Forum and check out the Achieving World-Class Results class at McClaskeyExcellence.com/AWCR. We'll see you next time. Operations Experts was created by McClaskey Excellence Institute. Hosts were David McClaskey, President of McClaskey Excellence Institute, and Billy Schaefer, Vice President of McClaskey Excellence Institute. The podcast was produced and edited by Kate Craig of Kate Craig Consulting. New episodes drop the first and third Monday of every month on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music. Find us online at McClaskeyExcellence.com and register for our Achieving World-Class Results course to enable your organization to deliver exactly what you promised every time using extraordinary operations.